So I'm going to flip between, I cheated too, sorry. This is where I got to take my glasses off. No. I can't see.
Might be this one right here. This is old. No?
Yeah, that works great. Thank you so much. I'm working actually between a PowerPoint presentation and live. Yeah, did it switch? No, I should have it. Yep, I've got it. Yeah, it's okay. I'm just going to test something before we start, just to make sure that this works, which is not working. No, it's not working. Oh, it's not showing live view. I don't know what's going on here.
Showing on the screen.
Yeah. I've got it on flash drive.
Okay, let's get it going.
Briefcase sorry.
We can just use the podium too. Feel free to take a quick bio break if you need. We've got a spinny wheel, so we might be quitting.
We're still on time, no?
Yeah.
Or if you, actually, if we just go on the internet.
Yeah?
Wow.
Do you have a lot of images in this?
No. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
But it's not displaying.
It might be this adapter might not work.
No.
It's too much. Laptop. Very slow.
Which is weird. It doesn't happen before. But of course.
It's really spinning.
Yeah, forget it.
Like
Yeah.
everything's slow.
Yeah.
So can you want to work on this or you want to work on that? What do you want to display?
I need to display internet and PowerPoint. Which I've got here. So actually,
So you need the PowerPoint? Can you talk through the internet?
yeah, I can talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Yep. Sorry, this is the workaround. So I'm the first one where the tech, yeah, this is the wing it because the technology is not working.
Okay. So you should be good to go with the mouse right away.
Great.
I'll take some of this stuff.
Yeah, oh, you know what, I can't. Oh, damn it. There's a widget on there that I need on my web browser. Can we use we can't do it, eh?
Well, yours isn't going to work. So
No.
want to use mine?
I can't do it.
On your flash drive?
I can't load the widget onto your web browser, unfortunately. But I can use yours for the flash drive for the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here and we can.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, sorry. Because the widget, the app's proprietary, so I can't put it on there.
Oh, I see.
Sorry.
Got it.
Sorry. Okay, while these lovely women are getting me fixed up in terms of doing this presentation, I think I'm the odd duck out in this presentation today because I do in my practice as an instructional designer, I do a lot of work with post-secondary, but I also do a lot of public service sector and some corporate work. And this particular presentation is for one of my corporate clients, and it's called Rouxbe, which is an online cooking school, and it's the first cooking school, actually online cooking school in the world. And Rouxbe is housed here in Vancouver. And they started about in 2004, 2005, and it started out as a recipe site, not a cooking school site. And what was unique about Rouxbe was that they were offering video recipes, high-definition video recipes to the world. And if you go back, they started around 2005, 2004, 2005. If you go back, Epicurious, Food and Wine, Gourmet, Savour, all started posting videos, little technique videos, after Rouxbe got online and started this. So these guys are really the innovators and the innovators and early adopters to using video for cooking. I was brought in. I guess you're still waiting.
I just need to figure it out. Rouxbe.com.
So unfortunately, some of the presentation, because this is a commercial company, some of it's proprietary, which I loaded onto my computer that I could use. I can't show you some stuff today, unfortunately, because I can't load it onto any other computer.
Okay, so you're broadcasting.
That's great. Thank you.
And your internet.
What's all the other stuff? Okay.
I can close everything.
Yeah, thanks. It's because my eyes. That's fine.
You're here?
Great, thank you. Okay. Yep, thanks. So you'll notice the spelling Rouxbe, and the first thing about the company was it was a lousy name because nobody could remember it and nobody can remember the spelling of it. But the name comes out of roux, as in making a roux, as a culinary term, and Rouxbe Railways, which was the software that they used to develop their video player, which you'll see later on. So I'm a Mac person. So this is, I'm going to have to go to, sorry, how can I get, I need to go to the website now, so, okay, great, thanks. Yeah, so I'm going to, without me having to show you or talk to you about Rouxbe, I want to have the co-founder, Joe Gerard, do a little introduction. So bear with me just for a second here. And the co-founders, Joe and Don, are chefs who used to have a catering
Welcome to the
company
Rouxbe Cooking School.
Vancouver.
My name is Joe. I'm one of the co-founders of the company. At Rouxbe, what we do is we capture a professionally accredited cooking school curriculum in high-definition video, and then we deliver it over the web to anybody in the world that wants to learn how to become a better and more confident cook. I want to take you on a little tour of the site, starting with the cooking school lesson page. On this page, we showcase all of the lessons that we've developed to date. They include things like knife skills, stocks, pan sauces, pan frying, pasta, everything you can imagine that a professional cook would learn would be found on this page. You click on pasta, for example, how to make fresh pasta, and it opens up a lesson. So on this lesson page, you'll see it's organized by 5 tabs. One is goals, which just explains what you will learn in this lesson. And then you move on to the lesson videos on the next tab. And this is typically anywhere from an 8 to 15 minute video lesson, very specific to how to make fresh pasta in this case. We break each lesson video down into what we call topics, so they're like mini chapters, so you can take it a little bite at a time. After you review the lesson video, we have a practice tab. And in the practice tab, there are some practice exercises, and then there's lots of great practice recipes where you can apply those skill and techniques that you learn in the video lesson. So after the practice, we have a quiz. So you can use this to assess whether you remember the new knowledge that you acquired in the cooking school lesson. So the last section in every lesson is a discussion tab, and here is where you can ask a question if you're having any troubles with the lesson, and a Rouxbe chef will get back to you typically within 24 hours, sometimes sooner, sometimes a bit longer, but we will get back to you. The great thing about Rouxbe and something that I find very interesting is that it's something that's being used in professional cooking schools to actually teach, to replace, in some cases, the demos that they would have in the morning at a professional cooking school. It's also being used in high schools all over the world.
Rouxbe compares very well. It's almost the same as being in class, but you get a better view, and it's a lot closer than the mirrors and sitting in a desk.
Well, Rouxbe gives a pretty accurate representation of all the things that we learn in class. So for us, it's a really good thing for us to go back to. If we want to remember how to make a sauce or how to phrase something, we can go back after class and go and check out what's going on.
I definitely think that Rouxbe could help the home cook in lots of ways. It gives you visual cues, it gives you sound cues. I think it's very beneficial and easy to follow.
You can do it on your own time, at your own pace. You can watch lessons again that you need refreshers on, so it's very flexible.
Home cooks learn through recipes because that's what they think they need to rely on. That's what's out there. That's what's thrown at you. And there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes you come across a recipe that's a gem. But for every recipe that's a gem, that if you follow it, it's always going to turn out. There's about 1,000 that can take you anywhere. What sets Rouxbe apart is its quality. If somebody is really serious about cooking, they can really get the details that they need to move their cooking to much higher levels. So it doesn't just get you to cook better, but it can get you to cook great once you really end up practicing the details that are in Rouxbe and honing them.
So that's just a quick introduction from Joe. And Tony is also one of the investors into the cooking school and runs Northwest Culinary Academy, which is a face-to-face cooking school here. What's really interesting about Rouxbe is that when I first came on board, the recipe site had been created, but not the cooking school. So I came in to help develop the whole cooking school architecture with them using their video player. And when we started doing the needs assessment, Rouxbe had first wanted to market this to the individual home cook, to the beginner level cook, and we found the beginner level cook probably wasn't going to use an online cooking school. And so we were looking at the intermediate cook. When I did a bit more analysis, what we really found was professional development and professional cooking schools are using Rouxbe all over the world. It's just exploded. There's also ESL schools down primarily in South America using Rouxbe as an ESL learning tool, which is really interesting. So lots of applications that we didn't foresee, or the company didn't foresee, until they started really investigating who that target audience was. The reason I got involved with Rouxbe is I'm passionate about food, and I was looking at some way of marrying my food passion with my paid work in instructional design. And I literally stumbled upon this company. When I first saw Rouxbe, and I didn't see a cooking school, I saw a video recipe, but there were a number of things that struck me as it being incredibly different. One of the things, and you heard Tony say this and also Joe say it, is that they really look at skills and techniques. The focus is on skills and techniques. It's not on recipes and it's not on dishes. They're really passionate. These are all chefs that started this company. They're all passionate about teaching skill and technique, and that if you know skill and technique, you can produce anything. So when I was hearing that, I was really hearing a different way of learning about food and cooking, and that attracted me. The other thing was that they were really focusing on the food. Rouxbe, you'll notice, and I'll show you some other clips later in terms of the video, there's no celebrity. And these guys were producing this company in the big, rampage of celebrity chefs. They decided very early on, and all the investors, private investors were saying this is a big mistake. They said we're focusing on hands and ingredients, not faces, not food. The feedback has been tremendous. All the users comment about how what's really important is to get the really good visual of the food, and you also get the auditory of what the food sounds like. The other reason I was interested in Rouxbe is that they're taking a kinesthetic learning environment and transferring it to a visual environment. And I was going to all sorts of food conferences around the world asking about research in terms of kinesthetic online learning. And the only thing I could really find is dance. There's a lot on dance. There's not a lot on food. So these guys were really early adopters in terms of trying to transfer that learning environment from one to another. And they've been quite successful at it. The other thing that was really impressive is that they're using very good quality video, as HD video. And they're also using really innovative technology, primarily what we call the video player, which I'm going to show you in a minute. The last thing is that they've got an incredibly creative, innovative team. It was two chefs, Joe Gerard and Don Thomas, who owned a film catering company, who wanted to get out. They were tired of the 20-hour days, sold up their company, and decided to create this online cooking school, knowing nothing about the technology, nothing about online learning, but passionate about getting skills and techniques out to people. They've blown me away in terms of their learning about learning. They've challenged me every step of the way. I've had to rethink my instructional design experience and skill set based on working with this group of people. So what I'd like to show you, if I can find the right one, because I had it before. Yeah. So I'd like to show you, this is the whole fulcrum or basis of Rouxbe, is what we call the video player. So the video player, this is the construction of what we call a lesson. So a lesson is housed within these tabs. Joe went over it a bit. There's always the goals. The video comes up and starts to play in terms of taking a student through or a user through a linear sequence of how to do something. And I don't know why it's not playing. Sorry? Yeah, it's not going to play. Yeah, it's not going to play, is it? It's Flash. Yeah. You don't have Safari on here, eh? No. Explorer, yeah, no, Explorer's not going to be great. We're not going to look at it. I can walk you through this, sorry. What's unique about this, and I can show you, I'll show you on the PowerPoint. Here we go, sorry. What's unique about this is when you go through a video, as you're walking through a video, there's things what we call drill downs. And what happens is as the topic is played, so slicing and dicing is the second topic in how to cut using a chef's knife. What happens when a topic comes up, if there's additional content that is relevant to that specific topic and is foundational content, is something that the student should know about, Rouxbe created this concept called the drill down. And drill downs are those bits of information, foundational bits of information that support the learning pathway as a user goes through a lesson. So what you can do is actually, as the video is playing, this will light up when the term brunoise is spoken. This will turn up, and you can stop and click on this link, whoops, which you can't do right now. You can click on the link, and it will take you to another video that pops up in this particular video frame, and it will show you the bit of information about brunoise. What is a brunoise? How do you make a brunoise? As soon as that little drill down is finished, it stops and takes you back to the point you were at in the topic in the lesson and continues playing. When I saw this, I thought it blew me away, because I thought, wow, this is an incredible way of taking somebody down a learning pathway and allowing them to stop and make choices when they need additional information if they don't get a concept. So this was another facet of Rouxbe that really appealed to me. As we started creating the cooking school, what happened is we got a lot of feedback from students saying that they really loved the whole facet of the cooking school. They liked the interactivity, they loved the audio, the visual quality, all sorts of things. The one thing they didn't like was that they had to subscribe to the entire cooking school. So there were a number of lessons listed on a page, but there was no course pathway. Nothing had been created into courses. Different users wanted to access different lessons or just wanted one lesson or two. So the concept of Learning Pathways Initiative was created. And so Rouxbe asked me again to participate in what ended up being creating a learning object repository in an LMS. So what we've done, or what Rouxbe has done, is started to create customizable learning pathways for users as they come in to the Rouxbe Cooking School. So what they started with, this is called the Rouxbe Pocket Cooking School. So I'm just going to show you. Hopefully this works. No, sorry, can't work. Proprietary information. Pocket Cooking School is actually going to be released within the next few months. And what it does is maps Rouxbe content to any recipe out there on the web. So what I've done here is I've gone to Shabar and I wanted to use Swiss chard last night for dinner. So I looked up a recipe for linguine with walnuts and Swiss chard. And what Rouxbe does is uses a lexicon mapper. So it's a lexicon, it looks for lexicon within the technique of the recipe. So what you can do is highlight the technique of the recipe. And in the web browser, you can use the Pocket Cooking School. You can download it and just drag it into your web browser. When you click on it in the web browser, it pops up this frame, which gives you all the lessons, all the techniques, all the information from the Rouxbe Cooking School side, so the skill and technique side, enabling you to create this recipe. This was the first step in terms of creating unique learning pathways, because what Rouxbe wanted to do was focus on the skill and technique, and the world is all focused on recipes. So this was a way of bridging and linking the recipe world and the skill and technique world. What came after this was a whole lot of, sorry, I've got to get to the right slide. I'm in the wrong place.
Slicing is simply the action of separating food into sections.
Sorry, now it's working.
Dicing is the process of slicing an ingredient 2 or 3 times in different directions to create dice or uniform cubes. That's it. Long ago, French chefs came up with terms to efficiently describe different cuts. For example, instead of saying cut the carrots into 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch cubes, they simply called this brunoise. For sliced ingredients,
so you notice brunoise came up, so I click brunoise. Now I go to the
brunoise traditionally means a
drill down. I can watch the brunoise drill down. I click the close, and then I come back to my original
They coined
video
terms like bâtonnet.
So that's the whole concept of the drill down. What I do want to get to, though, is when we started building, once we went from the Pocket Cooking School concept of mapping Rouxbe content to other content out there, then we started saying, okay, so how do we create learning pathways for users who are coming in and want to create their own learning pathway? And so I started talking to user interface designers, web developers, computer programmers, and they're all talking at this level of language, and I'm trying to get my head wrapped around it. It was an amazing exercise in an instructional designer to start looking at these. This is one of dozens and dozens of frames that we came up in terms of creating the logic behind the learning pathways. It was an absolutely fascinating exercise from an ID point of view to actually look at building an LMS and a learning object repository. So what came out of that was the first phase of this learning pathway development, which is organizations coming to Rouxbe and saying, hey, we've got this curriculum, we've got this need, can you build us some courses? So Garrett's is a large shipping company, catering company for shipping lines based out of the UK. they have a huge need. They needed to go online, so they brought their curriculum to Rouxbe and said, okay, can you map it? We need this. So what Rouxbe did was take the content sections, so they had knife stock, and they mapped it against Rouxbe and came up with all the lessons and learning tasks associated with those content chunks. CCAP is another organization down in the States that works with thousands of high school students, training them for the hospitality trade. What was unique about this particular project in terms of creating learning pathways is that the mapping was done on a learning outcome basis. So they took all the learning outcomes for the CCAP program, mapped it against Rouxbe content, and then we were able to identify what lessons, what tasks, what bits of information were most important for that learning outcome framework. So the future, what we're hoping to build in the future is that the individual user can come into Rouxbe and actually create their own course or create their own lesson. Unfortunately, that's still another year away just because of the algorithms that the programmers have to create to enable to do that, but they're actually moving forward in terms of getting there. So I'm excited because I think what's happening is instead of moving, it started out as using aspects of adaptive learning methodologies. We're going to more generative learning, but we're also going away from a push model to a pull model, which I find very exciting. Now, having said that, I work with a lot of clients who are in the post-secondary realm. This took a lot of money. The video player itself took $1 million for the production of that software. Hopefully, though, once this gets out there, once this becomes more readily available, that kind of technology will filter down to NGOs and public post-secondary. Anyway, if you want to go into Rouxbe, Rouxbe offers free tours. It would be lovely to get some feedback from you from a user perspective because we're always changing, which is what I find really fascinating about this site. Anyway, thanks, and sorry for all the technical hiccups.
Thanks very much, Carolyn. I know I'm going to definitely go take a visit at Rouxbe and see what that site's all about. Okay, we have our next team from BCIT, and we have, I think, a change in one of the presenters. So it's Ali Shabar and Youdan from BCIT speaking on medical radiology.
Do you need the internet?
Yeah.
On the line?
Yeah, I'm the one.
Hi, we would like to share with you a design feature that we use in
several anatomy course in Medical Radiography program at BCIT. And the future is called Image Viewer, and it's designed by Ali and another colleague, Rosario Hazel. And Rosario couldn't come, so I'm presenting this for her. We're going to talk about a little bit about the rationale of the design, and Ali will talk about the development and implementation. In the anatomy courses, in the medical radiography courses, we have some special learner needs, and the image viewer is designed to address these needs. So in those courses, the students need to explore tremendous numbers of images, including X-ray images, diagrams, and joints. They will need to identify the anatomies on those images. So very often, it requires students to compare quite a few images at the same time. So I will give a show to one of the courses, which is still under development. This is the courses called, I only know the number, is IMRAD 3230. And this course has 2,800 images. So by browsing the table of content, you can imagine how many images we're going to have on one HTML page. So the challenges we have is, if we put this one. So if we put the images, could be more than 10 or 20 images on a single HTML page, given the size of the computer screen, especially the display area in the learning content management system we used at BCIT, the desire to learn. So this place for display image is quite limited. So think about if we have more than 10 images on one page, that page could be very long, and students have to scroll down to look at the images. And in case that they will need to compare more than 5 images or 6 images, 20 images, how can they find the images? Because the difference on one images, they could be very subtle. Could just be a blur area on the X-ray images, or even a very fine line on the images. So they have to look very closely to the images, and the images needs to be put together so they can move from one image to another image very easily. So this is the challenge we have, and Ali and Rosario come up with a brilliant idea we called image viewer to display the image. Can you make it larger? No, does this one? Oh, it's here. Okay, this is. Can we have full screen? So this is still, okay. So the image view is a beautiful frame, container for images. We can put multiple images in one frame, and each image has description associated here. And every image has its own name, labeled, and we can browse the images by clicking on the labels. And the images we also build the zoom capability in the image view, so if the students wants to have a closer look at the images, they can just click on the zooms. So this design helped the students to study the images very closely and compare, contrast the images effectively. So right now the images, the size of the images are 500 pixels because we have limited storage space for the desire to learn. So in the future, we're looking, if we have more storage place, the image could be larger, so it may be more clear for students to identify the anatomy. So I'm going to let Ali introduce the development and talk about the implementation.
Hi, my name is Ali Shabar. I'm the multimedia developer in BCIT, and I developed this application for our Desire to Learn server. The challenge is to take the old image viewer, which was a static image viewer. This image viewer, the work around it is to implement image by image and drag button by button. If you see here, we have extra buttons, and it was really time-consuming process. So what I did, I developed the image viewer, which has different variation of it. Let's start with the first one, which is a full option, has all the options. And here you can see the title, the zoom functionality, and you can have thumbnails and names. So it depends on the instructor and what he needs from us. This is the second layout. The second layout doesn't have thumbnails, it has only labels, title and description for the bones. And this is very simple one. The instructor, he didn't need any labels. He said, I just need some buttons. And all of these buttons are dynamic. What I mean by dynamic is, it's all driven by this XML file. So if you see the XML file contains the title, the description, and the URL. The URL is the path where they can find the image. So when we send it to our team, the team who is responsible about building the HTML page for Desire to Learn, they get this blank XML file and they just need to fill these tags. And we get sometimes, we get a request, something like this. And here the instructor, he asked us to put 6 image viewers in one HTML page so the student can compare one image to another, and we keep them side by side, and they can read the instruction, they can compare the bones, and they can compare that. So this is different layout and different use for our image viewer. I just want to show you how we built this image viewer. So image viewer, when we send it to our team, it's a blank, nothing in it. In here, if you see, the title, the thing is, because we don't have an XML file. The XML file we sent to them a blank, there is nothing in it. So they just need to fill it. Put it in here. Then, when they run the thing, you get the image viewer with the title and with all the images and with the description. And the customization for the image viewer is not time consuming right now. It's only, I'm involved only in customizing the layout of the image, but when I send it to our team who's building the Desire to Learn pages, they only need from me the Swift file and the XML file, and that's about it. Any questions?
We have time. We have time for questions.
You may.
Yeah. One over there. Yeah.
It's just the
Sorry,
time.
can I just repeat the question first? So the question was, is there a lot of resources? Because you mentioned that it gets sent to the team and that sort of thing. So I guess the workflow, what it looks like, and how much time?
I think it's only the time needed to fill that XML file, the blank XML file, and resizing the image to 500 pixels. Because the limit right now, we have only 500 by 500.
To provide the images and someone fill the titles in the HTML file.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah, there's one back here. The question is was icon there.
That was the Dreamweaver, which we use in BCIT for deal with XML file, but you can use any other editor for XML file. XML file is, you can edit it with Edit Plus right now, and it's a free tool on the net. You don't need Dreamweaver to access that. The blank page.
And would you share the blank page with anybody but you?
That depends on BCIT, but the blank page, I send them a template for our team, and it's all blank. The HTML page is blank, and the XML file is blank, and they just need to fill these things.
There was one more question over here, I think. I don't know. No? That would be it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have our next session, Self-Study Learning Objects for Nursing, and it's Maureen Mackey and Tim Paul from Douglas College.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it's
Hello, everybody. I'm Maureen Mackey from Psychiatric Nursing at Douglas College, and this is Tim Paul from our Center for Educational, Instructional Development Technology at Douglas College. Apologies for the PowerPoint. It's an instructional design decision to show you this PowerPoint. We're going to share with you some work we did together collaborating in developing a learning object. And I'm just going to put up a slide, which is the real reason for having the PowerPoint, of where we started. I'm going to talk a little bit about what this is, and in terms of psychiatric nursing education, and then I'm going to turn the mic over to my partner, Tim, who's going to talk about the process of developing this learning object and talk a bit about the techie stuff. And then we're going to go and give you a show and tell of the learning resource itself. So in the Department of Psychiatric Nursing at Douglas College, we use a conceptual framework that we've developed from a nursing model called the Newman Systems Model. And this model was developed by Dr. Betty Newman, who is an American nursing theorist in the 60s. And I don't know how Betty did it, but she found someone to put this really quite text-based model onto paper in 1970, and that's what you see in front of you. I think in 1970 this was quite a source of pride, actually, because the model is really quite complex to some people, and they had to find a way of appealing to the visual learner. So we were using this in the Department of Psychiatric Nursing to teach the Newman Systems Model sort of / Department of Psychiatric Nursing conceptual framework. We kind of use the model framework a little interchangeably because we've adapted Dr. Newman's work. So we're using this as a visual and a text-based workbook that was about sort of this thick, double-sided, to explain the model. And we really want to make sure that our curriculum is based on the model throughout and that instructors are teaching the model consistently, embedding it into their courses consistently, their clinical instruction, et cetera, and that students are getting it all the way through. But for some reason, some people found this kind of daunting. So as a personal project, I decided for a school-based course to try to do something with this to make it a bit more interactive. And so using Blackboard 8 or CE Vista, I gave it a try for a course project. And so I'm not even going to show you that because you can imagine what it would look like. I think the theme of this section is addressing particular needs of learners. And in this case, the particular learners involved are those that could study the Newman Systems Model or conceptual framework in a self-study way, so that although they're taught the model in their classes when they first come into the program, they need to be able to review it and refresh it. And we need to have some kind of a tool for new faculty to get oriented to the model. And for faculty who are getting a little rusty, or students are getting a little rusty to use the model. So that's the idea of fitting within this conference topic, is the particular needs of the learners are people who need to self-study, go at the model over and over again when they need to, just on a need-to-know basis. So having not done very well with the Blackboard 8 design, I mean, it just was a series of assessments and PowerPoints. I went to Tim and asked him to make it come alive. So I'm just going to turn it over to Tim now.
So Maureen came to our office, and like all new relationships, I was only half listening to what she was saying. So she introduced herself, Maureen Mackey, psychiatric nursing, but what I heard was Maureen Mackey, psychic nurse. And I was intrigued, so I thought I might take this on. But this is what she presented me. And I don't know how your brain works, but I honestly couldn't follow this at all. but being new to the relationship, I just kind of smiled and said I would figure that out later, which often happens. It took me the better part of a month or so just to kind of wrap my head around what this was exactly. And so I immediately went and Googled Newman Systems model, and basically this is all that's out there. So since 1970, I'm sure many people have tried to make something more interesting than this and have failed. So this is what I was left with. So I didn't have a lot of sort of materials to go on and to kind of get a conceptual idea of what this was. So it took us a few months, right, to kind of hammer out what this is, because as a person who does some design work, it takes a while to kind of get that relationship, to understand. You need to know enough about the topic area to kind of move forward. And so although we had kind of a 1 year time frame that we wanted to get this project out, I spent the first couple of months trying to figure out what it was, and then maybe a couple of months trying to offload it to somebody else. And yeah, so that failed. And Maureen was patient and obviously using her skills to make sure I followed through on this. So anyways, we took this. But the point I wanted to talk about was in our area, we're like in all the areas that do this kind of work, we are so very busy. And I'm being honest with you that when I first met, I was thinking about the ways to tell her that there's no way we can do this for you. But she sold it to me, right? I mean, I have to pick from a number of different things, and this was a legitimate need, and I was able to fit it in. So, and we had to build this relationship, and she allowed that time to happen, and I think you need to allow that time to find out what your role is and what your role is and how you're going to work together. So it took us a while, but we used Illuminate. I don't know if you know Illuminate, but there's other programs like it. Maureen lives on Bowen Island, so we actually had weekly check-ins. I think we agreed we only met maybe 2 or 3 times at the front end, and then we just checked in every week, and that was critical because everyone is doing this stuff, as they say, off the side of their desk. And if we didn't have these constant check-ins, it would have gone completely south. So it's the relationship, I think, that's most important. You'll figure out the rest, but get the relationship right, and your projects will actually get done.
So Tim is an exceptional listener, and I think he's an honorary psychiatric nurse and definitely a Newmanite. Now I want to get at the...
Actually, I just want to add to that. I've been sort of accused all of my life of being an exceptional listener. I just have this kind of look like I'm really concentrating on what you're saying, when really I haven't a clue. So. But I'm diligent.
Okay. Maybe before I leave the PowerPoint, I just want to show this picture. The woman in the middle is Dr. Betty Newman, and I had the opportunity to present this learning object to her and the Newman trustees in Pennsylvania at a biennial scholarly conference of the Newman Systems Model in June. And that was very exciting. And that's my colleague on the right, Anna Haluka, who's a trustee. She's in the audience, to whom I'm very grateful for the support. I think so, yeah. Did Betty like what we did? Okay. So this is the first page of the learning object. And so you can see that Tim has developed, he's taken the concentric circles to a different place. And he, in order to provide for different kinds of learning, we do have some text that you see on the left. So it's kind of nurses like text, right? Nurses like to double check and triple check to make sure that everything's right, which is a good thing. So we kept some text. And then you can see that there's, we call these the domains of nursing: person, environment, health, and nursing. That's always part of a model. So you can get at that 4 different ways, for the top or through the bottom. So Tim has developed, like, in terms of instructional design, like consistency, of course, repeated, predictable elements. I'm just going to sort of show you how that goes a little bit. So this is the person, then there's the environment, and there's health, and there's nursing. And then I'm going to show you a little bit more in detail. So we're going to go back to the person. So part of the problem with this, this thing with all the circles and lines from 1970 is also some of the language in the model can be a bit daunting. So we have a normal line of defense, a flexible line of defense, lines of resistance, and a core. So Tim has made it so that it kind of jumps out at you, each of these things. And the arrow is pointing to where that line is in this, model, just an abstract model, it's just a cognitive thing. And then the fun part was that we had to figure out a way to bring this to life. So we built a client nursing situation that illustrated each aspect of the model. And we did this throughout the learning object.
Not managing well at all. I think this is it. I mean, the fact that I don't sleep, the fact that I eat all the time, the fact that I'm putting on weight, the fact that I have no energy. No, I'm not doing too well. The only thing that I enjoy doing right now is drinking. Because when I drink, it gives me a little bit of a lift for maybe an hour or so. And that's the only thing that I'm doing right now.
And so that was
Before
the
we
patient,
go to
and
lines
here's
of
the nurse.
resistance, I just want to backtrack and talk a little bit more about how the system works overall. So we recall that Karim's flexible lines of defense have been activated. However, we see that they weren't effective. For example, he was not eating properly, he was binging eating at night.
So before you start thinking about yourselves in the fridge at night, just going to show a little bit more of this learning object. So then we have the environment, some of the patient's or client's stressors. Here we're making a comment about the degree of reaction and how the stressors relate to the client's experience of them. Now I'd like to maybe show you a video clip that we reserved the interaction between the client and the nurse to the last part, which was an instructional design decision. So we left that for the part that focuses on nursing rather than the earlier ones, just to break down the model and to simplify things. So finally, once we get here, we get to see the nurse interacting with the client. And for psychiatric nursing students, I mean, that's really what they're dying to see. So there's 4 vignettes here. So maybe I'll just start with the first one, and we'll just do that till our time's up.
Karim, we talked a lot today about your life as a man in your family, the role that it has for you, and the losses that you've had in the last few weeks. And it sounds to me like that's an extremely important part of who you are.
It is,
So
because
tell
in my
me.
community, a man is supposed to be working and providing for the family. And in my life right now, things have really changed.
That's what I was hearing from you earlier, as you talked about the loss of your job and how that impacted your ability to be a breadwinner and the head of the household. And also you'd mentioned feeling guilty and shameful.
Ashamed of myself, yeah. And the fact that I'm asking my wife to go out and work. That's really a big shame for me. Yeah.
So those are things that
that really makes me feel like a loser.
You'd mentioned you'd mentioned that a couple of times.
So that gives you a sense of the learning object. Anything else, Tim?
No. No, I should just say that. I mean, the nice thing again was the amount of time that was given for this to happen, because it just takes a while to kind of visualize what something like this is going to be. There's no sort of little bag that someone reaches into and pulls out a multimedia presentation or something. So there was a lot of back and forth that has to happen, a lot of planning. So when you're dealing with a department like ours, the more space you can give for that to happen, the better off you're going to be.
And I'll just mention that these are two of our psychiatric nursing faculty who are doing the acting here, Karim and Amanda Ryan. Karim Mahboub and Amanda Ryan. So it's kind of nice for our students to see the instructors, doing this kind of thing as well. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks very much, Maureen and Tim. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'd like the speakers in the post-secondary and beyond to situate themselves on the stage here for the final panel discussion. Okay, thanks.